Hi, Bryce. Welcome to the studio.
Good morning. Hello. Nice to be here.
Um, your company is organizing team buildings for companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, NASA. Quite impressive companies, I think, for which building strong teams is very important.
Yes, absolutely. We have excellent clients. We're really happy and proud to be working with companies like Facebook, NASA, Google. Um, we we know how important it is for those big global companies to have a strong team base, and for teams across the world to be able to reach across the internet and connect with each other.
Yeah. During the pandemic, like many companies, you went with many team buildings virtual, but maybe you already did that because you also had global customers. Or was it a totally new trend for you guys?
It was a totally new trend. Prior to March 2020, we did all our team building in person. So we were limited to cities in the United States. It was kind of just really luck, and also having like a really good base of facilitators, of creative organizers, of creative content makers that allowed us to have that transition into the virtual space in March 2020. And it felt pretty seamless. We were able to take the lessons learned from team building in person and turn some of those lessons into a great virtual experience.
And when we talk about a great virtual experience, what makes an online team building or event, it can be broader than team building per se, what makes it a good experience?
Uh, well, anybody who's had like a family happy hour or a friend group chat via Zoom over the pandemic knows that it's really hard to have a fun, satisfying social event online. So we learned a lot of lessons. Kind of the big one is that if you're going to run team building virtually, you need someone very organized to be in charge. Organic experiences are hard to have online.
Hmm.
Body language is harder to read. Communication is harder to manage and connect with. So it's really important to have what I call a meeting manager, somebody to facilitate, to MC, to make sure people know what's happening when. And
Hmm.
aside from that, one of the things we believe in terms of online team building is this virtual space is very strange because it connects people's professional life and personal life. People are in their own spaces, they're in their houses, they're in their apartment buildings. And we embrace that in terms of our online team building. So these may be events that people are attending with their colleagues, they're a professional experience, but we love people when they show their pets, when they show things that relate to their personal life, their hobby, their joys in our events, and really help bridge that gap between the
But
professional
but
and the
how
personal.
how how do you do that? Because the theory sounds very good, but do you ask then, well, show your dog or?
We literally do that. We do. So if you may have just heard my cat meowing off screen, if we were an event and I was hosting, I would absolutely say, I heard that cat, grab your cat, let me see it. If we've had children pop into events, and that's great. We kind of bring them in. We, like I said, when it comes to hobbies or your personal surroundings, we'll
Mhm,
even say, show us the most interesting thing you have within arm's reach.
mhm.
People grab things and we talk about them, we ask them questions. We really help teams that may know each other for years professionally see a different side of their colleagues, just by kind of embracing that personal life.
Yeah, and that's then also what you mean with you need that very good facilitator, somebody who thinks about that kind of stuff and also make it actionable.
Absolutely. We also follow a what we call a scaffolding system. We realize that it's hard, that some people don't immediately want to be big extroverts and share everything about themselves virtually. So we believe in the scaffolding system where we start with what we call very green light interactions. These are interactions that you would have with literally everybody. So if I asked you, "Hey, what time is it?" you you would feel completely comfortable telling me, right?
Yeah,
That's not a big
no
ask.
problem
That's
with
not a
that.
big deal.
Yeah.
If I ask you, what did you have for breakfast? That's also a green light experience. That's easy. People are willing to do that. Once you've established that trust based with what we call these green light activities, you can ask people to get a little bit more personal, a little bit more willing to share things about themselves. So after we've had a bit of a rapport, I might say, all right, tell me, show me the coolest thing you have within arm's reach. I'm going to grab something with my arm's reach as an example. I pulled a model of a TARDIS. For the nerds out there, this is from the Doctor Who show. And now you know a little bit about me. You know I'm a little bit of a nerd. You know I like Doctor Who well enough to have it within arm's reach. And then after we've upped that kind of personal level, that connection, I might ask people to do what I call red light things. So that gets people up and dancing, that gets people like wearing silly hats on their head, that just kind of builds the level of trust and interaction in our events by kind of breaking it down into these different scaffolds, into a way to build trust in a way that feels natural and gets people out of their shell slowly.
Yeah, but I can imagine that that's not easy, because I could follow you until the point, grab something nearby, but when you started saying getting them dancing in front of their camera,
we absolutely get people dancing in front of their camera, but it takes trust. It takes you can't ask that to do that immediately. If you log into an online event and the first thing you ask people to do is get up and dance, or tell me about your biggest accomplishment this year. That's a lot to ask people. And I've been to a lot of virtual events where they do kind of jump into that immediately. And you immediately have people say, whoa, what is happening here? That's too much for me. And they kind of shut down for the rest of the event. So by taking it slow, by building trust with the people that you're team building with, by actually like taking the time to build those teams, you can get people to do some fun, silly, wacky things in your virtual events.
Now, we've been talking about the host or the moderator, the facilitator, who is very important, building up that trust. But how does that look like? Is it then just having a conversation, or are you already doing team building, a game, or whatever in the meantime?
It's both, actually. So for my company, one of the things that we warn our facilitators about is that they turn into pocket friends. So we run 90 minutes events. So for those 90 minutes, that the facilitator in front of you should feel like a friend, and should be facilitating conversations, asking questions, maybe teasing lightly, but definitely never having silence, always keeping the conversation going, always being that MC, that facilitator for conversation flow. But on the other hand, people love games, people like gamifications. If you promise people points, that's absolutely the way to get people up and dancing. If we're playing a game together and I say, I will give you 5 points for your team if you show me your cat, people will 100% run to get their cat.
The cat might not like it, but
the cat's doing it for the team. The cat understands how important the points are too.
Indeed. Now you mentioned 90 minutes. Is that a good time frame to have such a session with a team online?
I think that's the sweet spot for online team building. We craft our events so that there's time kind of in a big group where everybody is interacting together, and then people have small team interactions inside breakout rooms. So there's a lot of movement between activities as a large group, smaller activities with teams, and then coming back together and talking about what you did as a team. So it's not 90 minutes of staring at a grid of faces on a Zoom screen. We definitely craft this so people are moving in and out of activities. People are changing up what they're doing. I read a statistic that people's attention span in Zoom meetings is 2 minutes. So you have 2 minutes. Short. It's incredibly short. So we try to do something different every 2 minutes, whether that's changing an activity, calling on somebody to interact, having them get up and do something. So every 2 minutes, something new is happening to re-engage people's attention. If you break 90 minutes down into 2-minute chunks, it tends to fly by if you're working on that granular level on how to keep people engaged.
Yeah. And is there then also room, because I'm trying to imagine how it looks like. Is there also room for example, a presentation, or is it completely focused on building the team?
No, absolutely. There's time for presentations. There's time for announcements. We really love a good video. We'll show that to break up the time, but it all should be in service of kind of creating those bonds, building those teams. So if you're going to have a 15-minute presentation during the middle of a team building session, you should also think about how that's going to affect the energy of the group, the way their interaction. So even if you're having a presentation, doing some things to engage people's attention, just asking them to type things in the chat.
And keep it to a maximum of 2 minutes.
Something should change every 2 minutes. So if you're giving a presentation, you know it's going to take 15 minutes. In your introduction, saying something like, where's everybody calling in from today? Where's everybody joining in from today? And just having them type that in the chat is a simple way of like keeping them engaged, giving them actionable things to do, so it's not just passively watching a speech for 15 minutes.
Yeah, maybe as a last question, we've been talking about 90 minutes as being a sweet spot for the length. How many people could you have in that kind of session? Because you already gave a clue by saying sometimes you need to break up in smaller groups. I think that's because in smaller groups you can do other things than with a big group. But what's your idea about that?
So our biggest event we've ever done had 452 people in it. And that took a lot of planning to make sure that all those people were engaged and interacting and happy. But that's an extreme amount of people.
But take that extreme example. If you have 450 people and you do then breakups, to what group size do you go down then?
So when we ran this event, we broke it into we had 45 minutes of kind of a big group activity. So we did have people giving a presentation, giving a speech, sharing a video, and then we played a large group trivia. So 452 people playing Jeopardy style trivia all together where they buzzed in their answers. And then what we did is we broke into smaller breakout rooms. And by smaller, I mean 40 to 50 people.
That's still big,
it's still pretty big. And then we engaged in activities with those 40 to 50 people. So we were managing, let me do math really quick. It's early. I think about a dozen breakout rooms of 40 to 50 people. But they were all having a similar experience. So afterwards, if they wanted to talk about what they did in their breakout room and how it compared, they had a point of common ground, of common conversation.
But it does also mean you need a dozen of facilitators to facilitate all those tracks.
We did, yeah, we 100%. And then in addition to what we like to do, in addition to our facilitator, we want our facilitator to just focus on being that MC, that pocket friend, that big personality. So they're always supported by what we call a co-host. So somebody to manage the technology of Zoom, to worry about breakout rooms, to answer questions in the chat if somebody's microphone isn't working or they're on mute and they don't know how to get off. So that our facilitator just has to worry about facilitating conversation, being that big personality. They don't have to worry about the organization.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, you shared a lot of very interesting tips, Bryce. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was wonderful being here. Just a pleasure. Thank you.
And you at home, thank you for watching our show. I hope to see you next week.